You check your bank account. The number reads $100,243. You've done it. 6 years of sacrifice, 6 years of saying no to vacations, to new cars, to the weekend trips everyone else seemed to be taking, and now you're here. But here's the strange part. You thought you'd feel different. You thought crossing $100,000 would feel like winning. Instead, you feel quiet, like something shifted, but you can't quite name it. What you don't realize yet is that everything just changed. Not because of the number, but because of what that number does from this moment forward. Charlie Munger once said the first $100,000 is a B times TCH. He was right, but he didn't tell you why. That's what this video is about. Let's go back to the beginning, not childhood, just 5 years ago. You're 24, you just landed your first real job, $52,000 a year. After taxes, rent, food, and the occasional Friday night out, you're saving maybe $400 a month if you're disciplined, maybe. You open a spreadsheet one night and do the math. At $400 a month, it'll take you over 20 years to reach $100,000. You close the laptop? This is where most people give up before they even start. Not because they lack ambition, but because the math feels impossible. Because the distance between 0 and $100K feels like an ocean you're trying to cross on a paddleboard. And they're not wrong to feel that way. The first $100K is different from every milestone that follows, but not for the reason most people think. The first stage is brutal because the progress is nearly invisible. You save $500 this month. Your net worth goes from $1,200 to $1,700. Nobody claps, nothing changes. Your life looks exactly the same as it did before you made that sacrifice. And this is where compound interest is supposed to help you, except at this stage, it's almost insulting. A 7% annual return on $1,700 is $119. The market is working for you, sure, but it's working for you the way a toddler helps you move furniture. The real enemy at this stage isn't your income. It's the gap between the effort you're putting in and the results you can see. Humans are wired to quit when effort and reward feel disconnected. And between $0 and $10K, they feel completely disconnected. What keeps you going isn't motivation, it's systems. Automatic transfers, no-spend weeks, cutting the subscriptions you forgot you had. Not because any single one of those things is transformative, but because the habit of making financial decisions is the real thing you're building right now. You're not building wealth yet. You're building the identity of someone who builds wealth. That's the invisible work of stage 1. You cross $10,000, and something dangerous happens. You feel rich. Not actually rich, but rich enough. Rich enough to justify a nicer apartment, a weekend trip, a car upgrade that you can technically afford. This is the stage where lifestyle creep kills more financial journeys than bad investments ever will. Here's the math that most people refuse to see. If you earn $70,000 and spend $68,000, you are not richer than someone who earns $40,000 and spends $30,000. Wealth is not what you earn. Wealth is what you keep. But this stage also has a hidden gift inside it if you're paying attention. By the time you hit $25,000 invested in a diversified portfolio, your money is generating roughly $1,500 to $2,000 per year in returns. That's not nothing. That's a flight home for the holidays. That's 2 months of groceries. That's a number that exists in your account without you doing anything. For the first time, you have a second income, even if it's small. And the psychology of that moment is everything. Because now you're not just a saver. You're an investor. The machine is running. The discipline you need here is brutal and simple. Every raise, every bonus, every windfall, before you let yourself see it in your checking account, direct 70% of it into your investments. Make the decision once, automatically. Never make it again. You're close. And somehow, this is the hardest part of all. At $50,000, you can see the finish line, but it still feels far. The market dips 12%, and you watch $6,000 disappear in 2 weeks. Your friends are buying houses, getting married, living lives that look, from the outside, bigger than yours. The psychological weight of staying the course when you have something to lose but haven't yet reached your goal is the real test of this entire journey. More people abandon their savings plan between $50K and $100K than at any other stage. Not because of market crashes, because of comparison. But here's what nobody tells you about this stage. Your money is now actually working. A 10% market return on $75,000 is $7,500 in a single year. You're saving maybe $12,000 a year from your income, but the market is adding another $7,500 for free. You're no longer doing this alone. And then 1 month maybe after a market rally, maybe just after a disciplined quarter, you check your account and the number says 6 figures for the first time. And you feel that quiet feeling we talked about at the start. That stillness that isn't emptiness. It's arrival. So why does Munger say the first $100K is the hardest? Not the first million, the first 100,000. Because of what compound interest actually looks like in practice, at $100,000, a 10% annual return gives you $10,000 without lifting a finger. That's almost a full month of after-tax salary for the average American worker generated while you sleep. At $250,000, that same return is $25,000 a year. More than many people save in a year through market returns alone. At $500,000, it's $50,000. You're now in a position where your money is doing as much work as you are. The first $100K is a threshold, not because the number is magical, but because it's the minimum amount of capital required for compound interest to actually feel real, to actually shift the ratio between how much your labor earns and how much your money earns. Before $100K, you are the engine. After $100K, the money becomes your co-pilot. The journey doesn't get easier, but for the first time, you're not traveling alone. Back to that apartment. Back to the glow of the phone screen. $100,243. What you've actually built over these 6 years isn't a number. It's something harder to measure. You've built the proof to yourself that you can delay gratification long enough for math to work in your favor. Most people never get there. Not because they can't, but because they quit during stage 1 when the progress was invisible, or stage 2 when the temptation was loudest, or stage 3 when the finish line was visible but still felt impossibly far. You didn't quit. And that changes everything about who you are and what you believe is possible. The first $100K is the hardest, but it's also the most important because it proves to you once and for all that you are the kind of person who builds wealth. And once you know that about yourself, no one can take it away. The second $100K will come faster. The third, faster still. That's not hope, that's mathematics. And now it's working for you.